going to jump right in since we only have 15 minutes. Obviously, I mean, the film is absolutely incredible, beautiful work. And it, you know, we've seen your first film, the Shola Lynch film, and so I want to know, is this what we should expect, these dynamic films about women of color who challenge the larger system and prevail in some way? Is this your legacy?
You know, I have to tell you, after I finished making the Chisholm film, was at Sundance, people were asking me what I was going to do next. I said to myself, the last thing I'm doing is making another film about a woman of color. As a woman of color, I do not want to get pigeonholed. There's no way, there's no way. And somehow Angela Davis's story kept pricking me. You know, it just like, see her images somewhere, somebody would hand me the book, all of that. And so here I am again.
Okay.
And so I've decided to do a trilogy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the next film will be a narrative, and I want to retell Harriet Tubman's story. It's an action narrative. Think about how she could cloak herself in invisibility, the invisibility of your low expectations of her.
This was an 8-year process.
Yes.
So what goes into making a film like this? From the, I know it's
raising
a
the money.
Okay. And how was this one funded?
Woo, goodness. At first, grants. You know, I always start there because it helps me work out my idea. And I delve into the research. I was like, wow, this is a political crime drama.
There is a conspiracy in the land. It's a conspiracy to wipe out the black community as a whole.
Well, I think she's trying to overthrow our system of government, and she admits that.
The actions of the FBI in apprehending Angela Davis, a rather remarkable story.
A U.S. District Court judge set bail at $100,000.
Well, no, I actually thought it was going to be a thriller. It turned out to be a drama, and I was like, there's a love story in this. What is that about?
Right.
And then what happened on August 7th? You know, I became fascinated with the mystery of all of it. And so it was grants that got me through that. And then I had some French producers who tried to make a film by Angela Davis. And I was like, no, you can't.
Okay.
I have a contract for the documentary rights. And they said, oh, you do? That's why we haven't been able to reach her. And we decided to work together. A third of the budget came from France.
Okay.
And the response when we pitched it in France was like, Angela, mais oui, ooh la la, you know? So it worked in our favor. They weren't afraid of her being a communist. They weren't afraid of her politics. And, you know, BET called me up. They were like, we hear you doing this Angela Davis thing. We love the idea. Or I met one of the vice presidents at a conference or something. The moral I know I'm supposed to be brief, but
It's okay. This is good stuff.
the thing is, when you're making work, you have to talk about it. And I was at a conference, some woman empowerment thing, and people were asking, what are you working on? And I was talking about I was like pitching it to anybody who would, not pitching it hard, but you know. And because of that, one of the executives called another executive, and then BET folks called me up. They're like, we really, you know, send us your proposal. We're intrigued. And I did. And they said, well, we're interested. And I said, don't mess with me. You know, because I was like, listen, I need money to finish the project, not, you know, 2 nickels.
Right.
And Larissa Jones, head of programming, called me up, and you know somebody's serious, which is probably why I do the low voice when I'm being serious. She called me up and gave me the low voice. She was like, Shola, we're serious. How much do you need? And I told her, and she didn't, well, it was on the phone, so she didn't blink. She didn't bother. Exactly. And there you go. I was funded. All of a sudden, I had all the money I needed to start the production, hire the staff, get things rolling. But it still wasn't enough.
Okay. And so when did Sidra Smith and Will Smith and Jada Pinkett come on board?
So we shoot the
And
film,
how?
we produce the film, we shoot the film, we're in the editing room, the film is almost done. We are trying to get to post-production. And my archival researcher was like, Shola, I have some good news, and I have some bad news. The good news is we can pretty much license everything. And the bad news is it's going to cost 4 times what we anticipated.
Okay.
yeah, so how do you get the master tapes to finish the film, which you're supposed to be doing in 2 weeks and whatever? And so I sent out a Hail Mary email. There were like 20 people or so that I sent, and I called it the Hail Mary email. And basically, sad story, blah, 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 need money now, blah, 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 to finish the film. And I think maybe 3 people responded.
Okay.
One of them was Sidra.
Okay.
And, I knew her, I didn't know her, but I knew her from, we'd bump into each other at Starbucks.
Mhm.
She's fabulous. She's she knows a lot of people. She said, I can help you. And then she was a little secretive about it. She said, I'm going to send it to these people. You'll see what happens. And Jada Pinkett Smith happened.
All right.
Sidra knew her. So, I couldn't have done that. That was a personal relationship she had. But when Jada saw it, we met in New York maybe a week later, and she was like, what do you need?
Awesome.
How does that happen?
Girl power.
I
at
know.
best, right?
This film
Sister
would
power.
not have happened without women in 2 countries,
Without real
all
sisters.
ages, who basically stood up and said, you know what, we're going to make this happen. We're going to help you make this happen.
All right, real sisters, right?
I'm telling you.
Real sisters.
Exactly.
But one of the things, one of the questions I have for you, I'm glad you mentioned that you're doing a narrative film next, because I wanted to know, are you a documentarian or are you a filmmaker? And obviously you're a filmmaker.
I don't necessarily want to be pigeonholed, but when I started the Chisholm film, I had been a researcher and associate producer, co-producer. I didn't know I could be a filmmaker. So instead of, how you can work on a project and be like, ooh, I wouldn't make that choice. I'd do it this way, blah, blah, blah. So I challenged myself to make a film. And I said to myself, I'll do it on my own terms as much as possible, and that way, whether it succeeds or fails, I know whether I can do this. And if I can't do it, at least I tried. I won't be going, well, I should have when I was in my 20s, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And, there are always moments in your film where you have to make a choice. And in that film, we had finished the cut, and the executives sent it to PBS, because that's where most of our money came from, and they came back with their notes. They were like, we hate it. This makes no sense.
Ooh.
This weird split screen, no narration. Why don't you just cut the opening sequence out and start with Walter Cronkite?
That's PBS for you.
I was like, so this is a film about the first black woman who runs for president in the United States of America, and you want to start with Walter Cronkite, who says a bonnet has been tossed in the presidential ring today? Really? So I said to myself, no, we're not doing that. But, and that same cut got us into Sundance.
Okay.
So sometimes we have to, if we're going to try something and it's hard and we're not going to get another opportunity, we have to stick to our guns. Which is not to say we want to shoot ourselves in the foot. So the opening sequence, if you look at it, I was like, fine, you don't know what this film's about, you think that thing is weird, okay, fine. First shot. Exterior church, lower third, the name of the church, the date. Second shot, interior church, Shirley Chisholm in the distance. Third shot, close up, Shirley Chisholm, who says, I am Shirley Chisholm and I am running for the presidency of the United States of America. Now you can't tell me you don't know what the film is about.
Right. I got you. All right. Now let me ask you this, because I had these questions. I'm going to ask
Okay,
you.
go.
I'm sorry. Well, are you an activist? That's one question. And I have one more, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience.
I am an activist in my field, I suppose. That I consider myself a storyteller. I consider myself a historian. I consider myself an archivist. Because, as you may know, I'm also now at the Schomburg.
Yes.
I am the head film curator at the Schomburg.
Congratulations.
And part of that, thank you. Part of my activism is to collect the evidence of us. So my activism plays out in storytelling and in collecting.
Okay. And then the last question before I turn it over to the audience is, as a filmmaker of color, a woman of color, were there any particular struggles that you think are unique to being a woman of color in film?
I think the biggest thing, being a woman of color making films about women of color, is that often people feel like there is no audience for your film because we don't quite exist.
Even with the Angela Davis film?
Even with the Angela Davis
Wow.
film. And if you think about, we were lucky it got into Toronto, and then it was picked up by Code Black and Lionsgate, and it was in theaters. And the marketing that Lionsgate and Code Black did, which was great, was just very youth-oriented only and very urban. But I feel like this is a woman's film. Like if you start with women of certain ages,
Right.
you know, like I'm not a young chick, you know,
Right.
like 'cause I don't check all the cute blogs. I don't know about them.
And so I'm gonna open it up. So first question right here.
First of all, thank you for making this beautiful, wonderful film. I'm sure you got to know Angela pretty well, relatively well. When you watch the film, you can tell that this is a phenomenal woman of great intelligence and could have even offered so much in the arena of politics. Point that she talked about any political aspirations she might have had and then just gave up because the system is so
Well,
awful.
she ran for vice president, actually, in the 80s.
Of this country?
Yeah, on the communist, for the communist, she was on the Communist Party.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Okay.
she did kind of get involved in politics, and you know, she's an activist, and it takes various forms. But listen, when you have Angela Davis, and her schedule is her schedule, and you have a limited amount of time to do your interviewing, you stick to the plan. And I wanted to know how a graduate student becomes a political icon. 68 to 72. So, and there was so much about that story that still, exactly, I had to be focused. And I irritated her. You can see it in the film. She didn't want to talk about George Jackson. She knew we were going to do it, but you can see she doesn't want to. Right? I love that. I love that you feel like you're sitting with a person having coffee and they're, uncomfortable, revealing things they don't want to reveal through their body language.
Hello, how you doing?
Hi.
Kind of loud, sorry. So this is like more basic question, but how did you come to choose Angela Davis for your next film?
That subject chose me. I don't know how to explain it. In fact, I was at, so what happened? So I was at Sundance and, people were asking me, what are you going to do? And this guy sits down next to me at a cafe and he's like, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about Angela Davis. Somebody should do a story on her. And I'm like, yeah, And then I don't think about it. And then somebody sent me her book. And then I saw her image. Somebody had photographed it. Yeah, I kept seeing her face everywhere. The capper really was, this sounds strange, I know this is being recorded, oh gosh, but I'm going to say it. I was at Shirley Chisholm's funeral, and there was a photo board, all these photographs of Shirley Chisholm with all of these various people. But in the corner, somebody had put, not with Shirley Chisholm, a photograph of Angela Davis. And it's like you've been through a funeral and the singing and the procession, everybody's filing out past this photo board, and I felt like, it was going to be easier for me to make the film than to not make the film. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, I read about the film quite a bit, and one of the criticisms I read confused me because I thought, did this person even watch the movie? But they said that the film was like a love story to Angela Davis, and it wasn't, I guess it wasn't journalistic per se. How do you respond to things like that? Because to me, this story wasn't really about Angela Davis, in as much as it was about a moment in time and about a movement and about a whole struggle that was happening and how...
Listen, I respond to that by, I disagree. Thank you for your comments. I mean, listen, I have 2 masters. I have a master's in American history and public history resource management. I have a journalism degree from Columbia. You know what I mean? But I'm a black woman who makes a film about a black woman who happens actually to be innocent. I must have made that up.
Right.
But the thing is,
and you can't be objective.
And I can't be objective
Right.
because it's Angela Davis.
Right.
But I actually went into it thinking there had to be more to it. 40 years have passed. I'm gonna find something. And I dug for a very long time. The FBI had nothing. The prosecutor knew he had a bad case early on. So all of these
for
things.
Her love and her fire. So I wanted to wrap with my last question for you. We really didn't get to talk about who Shola Lynch is. I know you're a track star prior to being a filmmaker. You're a scholar with 2 masters. And I want you to just kind of give some advice to the filmmakers in the room and the young women in the room about what it takes to do what you've done with your life, what it takes to be a successful filmmaker, what it takes to be successful in general as a woman of color.
I think that you have to commit to yourself. So that if you say you're going to do something, it's not a commitment to the thing, it's a commitment to yourself to follow through. And give yourself a chance to not be perfect. I mean, screw perfection. Be excellent, right? So I make a lot of mistakes, but I don't, writing grants, I got rejected more than I was accepted, but every time I got a rejection, I tried to get some feedback, or I would rewrite it, or I would try again. And the process of making mistakes gets you closer to your excellence. And sometimes that takes more time than you anticipate, But if you are committed to yourself, then you'll do it.
All right. Give it up for Shola Lynch.
Excellent, excellent.